What if I told you there are 4 simple sentences capable of creating an emotional bond he will never forget? Maybe you've already given everything, attention, affection, presence, and yet you feel he remains distant, as if something invisible blocks the true connection. In this video, you will learn the 4 sentences that activate a deep and authentic bond, able to transform the way you relate forever. And the key to this is hidden in a secret few know, found within Carl Jung's profound psychology. Comment below the word connection if you feel ready to create a bond that goes beyond words. Take a deep breath, because what's coming now could change everything. Let's begin. Number 1. The unspoken power of words. Why what you say shapes the soul. Have you ever noticed how certain words echo inside you long after they have been spoken? Words have a way of seeping beneath the surface, touching places that logic and reason cannot reach. It is in these silent chambers of the heart and mind that true connection is forged, not by chance but by choice. You may think that words are just simple vessels of communication, empty carriers of meaning, but this is a misconception that limits your power to create real emotional bonds. To speak is to reach into the unconscious, a realm Carl Jung described as the wellspring of our deepest truths, fears, and desires. Jung reminds us that words are like keys. They open doors in the mind and soul that would otherwise remain closed. When you speak, you do not merely express thoughts, you awaken archetypes, memories, and feelings buried in the other's psyche. This is the hidden magic of language. It is not the quantity of words, but the quality and intent behind them that moves mountains inside. The sentences you choose to utter can stir a dormant part of his being, creating a resonance that calls to something primal, something eternal. Do you sense how this shifts your role? You become not a passive talker, but an intentional alchemist of emotional connection. But this power comes with a challenge. How often do you speak words that only skim the surface, words that dance lightly without touching depth? How often do you find yourself trapped in the noise of empty conversations, clichés that neither heal nor inspire? The myth that mere talking automatically leads to understanding is a convenient illusion, one that leaves you stranded in isolation despite proximity. True emotional bonds do not arise from casual chatter or habitual phrases. They require the courage to speak with clarity and soul. Reflect for a moment on how words can awaken or wound, invite closeness or build walls. Have you ever felt an unexpected surge of connection from a simple phrase, or the cold distance created by a careless word? This is no accident. Language is the bridge between 2 worlds, the visible and the invisible, the known and the unconscious. Jung's psychology teaches that beneath everyday communication lies the language of symbols, the language of the soul. When you understand this, every sentence you speak becomes an offering, a thread weaving 2 lives closer. This is why the 4 sentences you will learn to say are not mere formulas. They are gateways. They are chosen carefully to awaken the hidden parts of him, to invite his spirit to meet yours in the sacred space between words. Imagine speaking not just with your mouth, but with your awareness and heart, crafting phrases that unlock trust, reveal vulnerability, and invite presence. The unspoken power behind your words will reach deeper than logic ever could. Now pause and breathe in this truth. Every word you say carries an invisible weight, an echo in time. Will you choose to let your words be hollow echoes or resonant songs that build bridges? The responsibility to shape connection lies with you. In each moment, you decide to speak. Words are like seeds, Jung said, planted in the fertile soil of the unconscious. What grows depends on the care and intention with which they are sown. May you become the gardener of these seeds, tending them with awareness and love to create a bond that flourishes beyond the surface, a bond that sings in the silent depths where true intimacy lives. Reflect on this as you move forward. How might your words today become the roots of something enduring, something real? How might you awaken the power within your voice to create not just conversation, but communion? Let this question settle quietly within you, like a gentle flame, inviting light into shadowed places. Number 2, why spontaneity alone does not build true connection. You have likely heard it said that the key to connection is to just be yourself, to let words flow freely and spontaneously. But what if this widespread belief is a myth that holds you back from forming the deep bonds you truly desire? Jung pointed to the shadow side of human nature, those unconscious patterns and defenses that quietly dictate much of our behavior without our awareness. In this light, being natural can sometimes mean falling into habitual scripts, rehearsed responses, or even emotional avoidance, all disguised as authenticity. What appears effortless on the surface may mask a quiet inner turmoil, a struggle to connect that remains unseen. True connection demands more than spontaneous utterances or reflexive reactions. It requires conscious presence, intentional speech, and an inner readiness to face discomfort. Jung taught that the path toward wholeness involves making the unconscious conscious, shining light on the silent fears and conditioned patterns that live beneath your everyday words. When you just be natural without awareness, you risk repeating old wounds or defenses that keep emotional walls firmly in place. The courage to speak intentionally, to choose words that touch beneath the surface, is a profound act of maturity and transformation. Think about how many times you have spoken without really listening, how many words escaped without truly being felt or meant. The myth that connection flows naturally can lull you into complacency, overlooking the subtle work of self-reflection and vulnerability that underpins genuine intimacy. How often have you witnessed conversations that circle around misunderstandings or leave a lingering sense of emptiness, even though everything seemed natural on the surface? This is because spontaneity alone does not dismantle the invisible barriers within. Moreover, true presence in communication means confronting your own fears, the fear of rejection, of being misunderstood, of appearing weak. Jung emphasized that the process of individuation demands facing these fears rather than hiding behind them. Intentional speech becomes an invitation to step beyond automatic habits, to reach for connection that is raw, real, and profoundly human. It is not a denial of spontaneity, but a transformation of it from reactive chatter into meaningful dialogue. This awareness changes your relationship to language. Words become not mere sound, but vessels carrying the weight of conscious intention and emotional honesty. When you choose to speak with such intention, you offer him a gift, a mirror reflecting your true self and an open door inviting his. This transforms communication from superficial exchange into an encounter of souls. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The unconscious scripts behind being natural often govern your interactions more than you realize. Bringing these scripts into awareness allows you to reclaim the power to choose your words, to break cycles of disconnection and build bridges of trust. This is why the 4 sentences you will learn are crafted not for casual use, but for deliberate expression. They ask you to rise above the easy path of habitual speech and step into a space of vulnerability, clarity, and emotional depth. To connect authentically is to move beyond myths and illusions, embracing the challenge of true presence. As you prepare to speak these words, know that this is an act of conscious rebellion, a refusal to settle for surface connection. It is a step toward emotional freedom, a call to build bonds rooted not in convenience, but in courageous truth. Let your voice carry this intention, and you will find that what unfolds between you will be far richer, deeper, and more enduring than mere spontaneity could ever create. Number 3, the invitation to be seen. I notice you beyond what others do. In the quiet spaces where true connection begins, there lies a hunger, an ancient yearning to be truly seen. Not just glanced at or acknowledged for what you do, but seen for the essence beneath the surface. This is the invisible thread that binds souls, the silent language of recognition that Jung identified as fundamental to the process of individuation, the becoming of one's authentic self. When you say, "I notice you beyond what others do," you offer more than a statement. You offer a sanctuary. You affirm his existence as more than the mask he wears or the roles he plays. Consider how often we move through life feeling invisible in a crowd, reduced to stereotypes, expectations, or superficial impressions. Society conditions us to perform, to meet demands and fit molds, but deep inside, the self waits to be witnessed without judgment. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Now, when your words become that contact point, when you genuinely see him, transformation is invited. You ignite a spark within him that whispers, "I am recognized, I am accepted, I am known." This recognition goes beyond physical appearance or superficial traits. It pierces the veil that hides the vulnerable self. It is a dismantling of invisibility, a breaking down of walls built from years of neglect, misunderstanding, or rejection. By declaring that you notice him beyond what others do, you invite him to step out of the shadows of anonymity and into the light of authentic presence. The impact is profound because it challenges the internal narrative of invisibility that many carry silently. This phrase also disrupts the myth that connection arises merely from shared interests or common experiences. While these are important, they often skim the surface. True emotional bonds grow from the soil of deep recognition, being seen when you are most hidden. It is in this sacred acknowledgement that a man begins to feel safe enough to reveal parts of himself previously guarded, parts that long for acceptance. Jung understood the psyche as a complex dance between the persona, the outward mask, and the shadow, the concealed self. Saying, "I notice you beyond what others do," invites him to reconcile these parts, knowing that his shadow will not be rejected, but embraced. It is a wordless promise that you will hold space for the whole, not just the polished fragments shown to the world. Imagine the weight lifted from a soul burdened by invisibility, simply by hearing that one sentence. It is the start of a bond rooted in authenticity, a bond that quietly declares, "You are enough, you are seen, you are valued in your entirety." This is no small gift, for the human spirit thrives on being recognized in its fullness. As you prepare to speak these words, carry the awareness that you are not merely making an observation. You are extending an invitation to transformation. This invitation is the doorway to emotional intimacy, the threshold where two souls begin to merge in understanding and compassion. Jung said, "To be normal is the ultimate aim of the unsuccessful." In seeing him beyond the ordinary, beyond the masks and roles, you reject the empty aim of normalcy and embrace the extraordinary depth of genuine human connection. Let your words be the key that unlocks that door. Number 4, the affirmation of emotional depth. Your feelings matter to me. In a world that often demands strength through silence and stoicism, the simple declaration, "Your feelings matter to me," becomes a revolutionary act of emotional courage. This sentence does more than acknowledge emotion. It validates a landscape frequently hidden beneath the hardened exterior. Jung's exploration of the psyche revealed that true emotional maturity arises from the integration of both light and shadow, a journey that requires deep acceptance, not only of ourselves, but of others. By expressing that his feelings matter, you create a sacred space where vulnerability is not a liability, but a bridge to authentic connection. Consider how many men carry within them the burden of suppressed emotions, shaped by cultural scripts that equate feeling with weakness. This repression fosters an internal exile, where parts of the self are locked away, longing for recognition, yet fearing rejection. Your words offer a lifeline to these hidden realms, signaling that the full spectrum of his emotional world is not only seen but embraced. This is no superficial sympathy. It is a profound invitation to bring forth what has long been concealed. Jung emphasized that the acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. When you affirm his feelings, you mirror this acceptance, challenging the pervasive myth that men must be impervious and detached. Instead, you propose a different narrative, one where emotional honesty is strength, and where the depths of feeling are honored as essential to the human experience. This affirmation disrupts old paradigms by offering an alternative model of masculinity, one rooted in presence rather than performance, in openness rather than armor. It is a call to dismantle the invisible prisons that confine emotional expression. As you speak this sentence, you invite him to step out of isolation and into a shared reality where emotions are the language of connection, not barriers to it. Imagine the subtle shift that occurs when feelings, often silenced or dismissed, receive this profound acknowledgement. The walls built around vulnerability begin to dissolve, replaced by a fragile but growing trust. This trust becomes the fertile ground where intimacy takes root and flourishes. Your words become a balm to wounds inflicted by years of emotional denial, allowing healing to commence in the quiet spaces between you. Jung's work reminds us that integration, the harmonious joining of opposites within the self, is the path to wholeness. By affirming his feelings, you support this internal reconciliation, encouraging a fuller presence that encompasses joy and pain, strength and tenderness. It is a recognition that the emotional self is not separate from identity, but fundamental to it. In this affirmation, there is also an implicit promise that his emotional truth will be met without judgment or dismissal. This promise carries weight and demands responsibility, for it calls you to remain present even when emotions are difficult or uncomfortable. It is an act of love that requires strength and maturity, one that transforms connection into a sanctuary. As you prepare to speak this sentence, hold the awareness that you are not merely uttering words. You are creating an emotional home. Your voice becomes a vessel carrying acceptance and courage, inviting him to bring his whole self into the light. This simple phrase, spoken with intention, becomes a key that opens the door to deeper understanding and enduring bond. Number 5, the promise of presence. I will stand with you, even in silence. In the intricate dance of human connection, words often fall short of expressing the depth of presence we truly crave. Yet there exists a profound language beyond speech, a silent communion that Jung might describe as the meeting of souls. To say, I will stand with you even in silence, is to extend an invitation into that sacred space where vulnerability and strength coexist in quiet equilibrium. It is a promise not just of companionship, but of unwavering acceptance, regardless of circumstance or spoken dialogue. Consider how frequently silence is misunderstood or feared in relationships. Society trains us to fill every void with noise, to avoid stillness as if it were a threat rather than an opportunity. But silence, when shared with presence, becomes a sanctuary, an unspoken pact that neither distance nor discomfort will dissolve the bond between two beings. Jung believed that genuine transformation occurs in these liminal spaces, where the ego quiets and the unconscious speaks in whispers. Your promise of standing beside him, even in silence, acknowledges this sacred threshold. This sentence challenges the illusion that connection requires constant activity or verbal exchange. It dismantles the myth that intimacy is measured by words alone, Instead, it honors the profound truth that sometimes the deepest connection is forged not in conversation, but in the simple act of being together, unhurried, unguarded, fully present. To offer this promise is to say, I accept you wholly, including those moments when words fail or feelings are too complex to name. Jung observed that the psyche thrives on symbolic gestures as much as on logic. This promise is one such symbol, an emblem of steadfastness that transcends the ephemeral. It invites a man to surrender the pretense of constant performance and rest in the safety of your shared presence. Here the mask can fall away, and the authentic self is met with quiet understanding rather than judgment or demand. Imagine the relief and courage it fosters to know that your support is not conditional on articulation, emotional display, or action. It becomes a refuge from the relentless pressure to explain or fix. This kind of presence does not seek to change or direct, but simply to hold space, affirming that he is not alone even when words disappear. Such a promise requires strength and maturity from you as well. It asks for patience, empathy, and the willingness to embrace discomfort alongside him. But in doing so, it deepens the trust that underpins every enduring bond. It reveals that connection is not a transaction, but a sacred commitment, an ongoing invitation to meet each other's whole being, through silence and speech alike. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Standing with someone in silence creates that transformative contact. It speaks louder than words and reaches deeper than conversation. As you prepare to make this promise, carry with you the awareness that your presence itself is a powerful act of love. Your steady companionship becomes a beacon in the unknown spaces within him, lighting the way toward healing, acceptance, and profound intimacy. This sentence, spoken with intention, offers not just reassurance, but the invitation to share a journey beyond words. Number 6, the awakening of shared destiny. Together we can grow beyond our fears. In the landscape of human relationships, fear often erects invisible walls that isolate and divide. Yet within these walls lies an invitation, a call to transformation that Carl Jung spoke of as the process of individuation, where the self emerges stronger and more whole by confronting its shadows. To say, together we can grow beyond our fears, is to extend a hand into that challenging yet fertile terrain. It is a declaration of partnership, a shared journey through uncertainty toward growth and healing. This sentence does more than promise support. It ignites a vision of collective courage that transforms isolation into communion. Fear, in its many guises, is a formidable adversary. It whispers doubts, kindles mistrust, and tempts retreat into familiar but confining patterns. Yet fear is also a guidepost, pointing toward what must be faced for true freedom. Jung insisted that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. This pain, often masked by avoidance or silence, demands recognition not only individually but within relationships. By committing to grow together, you acknowledge this shared labor, refusing to let fear dictate the terms of your connection. This sentence dissolves the myth that growth is a solitary path, or that emotional bonds weaken under the strain of facing difficult truths. Instead, it embraces vulnerability as the crucible in which connection is forged. It redefines strength, not as the absence of fear, but as the willingness to move forward despite it. In speaking these words, you create a shared narrative of hope and resilience, inviting him to trust not only in himself, but in the power of your union. Imagine the profound impact of this shared vision. It opens space for honest conversations about insecurities and shadows, transforming what was once a source of division into a foundation for intimacy. Together becomes the key word. Two individuals no longer isolated in their struggles, but intertwined in purpose and mutual support. This collective courage inspires both to face their inner worlds with greater honesty and compassion. Jung taught that integration requires the union of opposites, the conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, fear and hope. Saying, "Together we can grow beyond our fears," is a call to this alchemical union, a recognition that the path to wholeness is not walked alone, but alongside a trusted companion. It reframes connection as a transformative process where both are challenged and uplifted. This sentence carries an implicit promise of loyalty through change and uncertainty, a reassurance that growth is not a threat, but an invitation to deeper authenticity. It fosters a safe space where fears can be met without judgment, and where transformation becomes a shared victory. Such a commitment cultivates trust and fortifies the bond against the inevitable storms of life. As you prepare to speak these words, hold the awareness that you are offering more than hope. You are igniting a shared destiny. Your voice becomes the spark that awakens courage and the steady flame that guides the journey. This sentence, infused with intention and sincerity, becomes a sacred covenant between two souls, embracing growth, fear, and the promise of transformation together. Number 7. Deconstructing the myth of instant connection, why emotional bonds require intentionality. In a world that moves at relentless speed, the idea that emotional bonds should form effortlessly and instantly has become a seductive yet deceptive myth. You may have felt this pressure yourself, the expectation that connection will spark at first glance, or that feelings should bloom without deliberate effort. Carl Jung's profound insights remind us that true emotional intimacy is not a matter of chance or haste, but of conscious cultivation. To build a bond that endures, you must challenge the illusion of immediacy and embrace the slow, transformative work of intentional presence. The myth of instant connection is fueled by cultural narratives that glorify passion and immediacy while overlooking the quiet labor beneath meaningful relationships. Social media, fleeting encounters, and rapid exchanges create an illusion that depth can be achieved at a glance. Yet Jung cautioned us that the psyche is a complex labyrinth where the unconscious weaves layers of history, trauma, and longing. Genuine bonds require time to navigate these hidden corridors. They demand patience, attention, and above all, intentionality. Intentionality means more than effort. It is a sacred act of awareness. It calls you to speak with purpose, to listen beyond words, and to recognize that emotional bonds are grown in the fertile soil of vulnerability and trust. This intentional engagement confronts your own fears of rejection, impatience, or superficiality. It asks you to move beyond quick gratification and to honor the slow unfolding of the other's inner world. Such an approach dismantles the myth that connection is a mere spark, revealing instead that it is a flame kindled by conscious care. Reflect on how many times you may have rushed toward connection, only to find it dissolve under the weight of unspoken fears or hidden wounds. Instant connection is often a mirage that evaporates once deeper realities emerge. Jung emphasized that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This transformation is not instantaneous, but a process, sometimes slow and arduous, requiring deliberate interaction and mutual growth. The 4 sentences you have learned are tools of this intentionality. They are not magic formulas, but carefully chosen invitations to engage the unconscious realms beneath surface conversation. They serve as anchors, grounding you both in presence, recognition, emotional safety, unwavering support, and shared destiny. These sentences ask you to step away from the myth of ease and toward the reality of commitment, to cultivate connection with patience and courage. Understanding this truth shifts your perception of intimacy from a fleeting event to a dynamic journey. It frees you from the frustration of unmet expectations and opens your heart to the gradual emergence of trust and depth. This perspective invites you to be present in every moment, to appreciate the small revelations, and to honor the evolving nature of emotional bonds. As you integrate this awareness, remember Jung's wisdom. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To build lasting connection, you must bring consciousness to your own impatience, fears, and assumptions. Only then can you invite genuine transformation, creating a bond that transcends superficiality and embraces the profound mystery of shared human experience. This commitment to intentionality is not always easy, but it is the path to connection that endures. Connection that nourishes the soul and honors the complexity of two unfolding lives. Let this truth guide your words and actions as you forge a bond both deep and real. Number 8, speaking with depth. An act of courage and love. To speak words that reach the soul is to stand at the threshold of transformation. This act demands courage, a willingness to expose your inner landscape with honesty and vulnerability. It is not a gentle or passive gesture, but a deliberate, potent force that challenges the protective walls both you and he have built. Carl Jung understood this journey deeply when he said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Speaking these 4 sentences is a conscious turn inward, a call to awaken the vision of connection that transcends surface appearances and touches the essence of being. In this moment, you hold a sacred power. Your words become vessels that carry not just sound, but intention, empathy, and presence. To speak with such depth means to refuse the superficial scripts society offers, and instead choose language that invites trust, acknowledges pain, and opens the door to authentic intimacy. It is a profound rebellion against fear and isolation, a step toward unity where two selves meet in shared humanity. The challenge is to face your own shadows, those doubts, insecurities, and defenses that whisper it is safer to remain silent or guarded. Yet silence, unbroken by genuine expression, often breeds distance and misunderstanding. This act of speaking is a form of love, bold and transformative. It requires emotional maturity to sustain, for it asks you to be steady when vulnerability stirs discomfort and to listen without needing to fix or escape. It is a dance between giving and receiving, between revealing and holding space. Such love is not fragile. It is fierce in its commitment to truth and connection. Through your words, you extend an invitation not only for him to be known, but for yourself to be seen in return. Jung's insight that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed, captures the alchemy you ignite. Speaking with depth creates this contact, opening the possibility for mutual growth and healing. It turns conversation into communion, interaction into transformation. This is the essence of emotional bonding, a sacred exchange that shapes both lives indelibly. As you step into this role, know that the power lies not in perfection, but in sincerity. It is not about having all the answers or never faltering, but about the courage to engage authentically, to risk misunderstanding, and to remain present. This is the language that builds bridges, heals wounds, and kindles a bond that endures beyond words. Reflect now on your own voice. Consider the impact when your words carry the weight of intention and the lightness of presence. Imagine the space you create for connection, deep, real, and transformative. This is your invitation to speak with depth, to embrace the courage and love that live within your voice. May this awareness guide you in every encounter. May your words become the roots of lasting bonds, nurturing a connection that reverberates quietly yet powerfully in the chambers of the soul.